Hey guys, Brian Castro here with Better Chess Training, and today doing something a little different in that I went on to try to find a game here, and um, not many people are on. So I have decided that I'm going to play one of the computer bots, Slobo. I played it before. It's rated around the same as I am. And we're going to see how it goes. I think that one shouldn't play computers too often if they're trying to train and get better at playing humans. But sometimes when you don't have another opponent or to play, they can be very handy. Um, in this particular case, Slobo is very good at tactics, like most computers, but it can make some mistakes. It's kind of a watered down version of some of the stronger engines. So here we're in the French defense. I know I've played that a lot before, but I didn't have control of whether I was playing white or black here. Um, but it's a good opening to learn in any case. So far, so good. We have some nice development here, and um, queen to e2 is pretty standard. And here I'm going to, let's see, I can castle or I can go ahead and play, um, let's see, how do I want to handle this? I can work on my development by either playing b6 and developing my bishop, or I can castle. If I castle, then if he plays bishop to g5, then I have to be very careful about playing b6 because of some tactics, which I think I've shown you before. But, I think castling is the way to go, though. If he does play bishop to g5, which I think is the book move, I'm going to hit him here with h6. So if I play b6 here, the tactic would be to take on f6. And then if I take back with the queen, for example, queen to e4 will win this rook. Okay, so that's why I'm going to avoid that. But I'm going to play h6 first. Okay, and here bishop to c1. Typically, bishop to h4 or bishop to d2 is the usual move here. So now I can go ahead and develop with b6. I'm going to try to, I've been rewatching some of my videos, and I want to make sure that I am explaining why I'm doing things and what I'm seeing. So I'm going to try to do that a little more here. Okay, so far so good. So you see he kind of wasted a move here. My development is nice here. I don't have a huge advantage, but it's definitely not a bad thing. Okay, queen to c7, getting out of the line of this rook, and then I could bring my rook over. Another thought here eventually is playing this e5 if he would have kept his king in the middle. So now we can kind of decide how we want to play this. Definitely putting a rook here would be good, and maybe putting one on the c file as well. Maybe playing, eventually playing my knight here to d5 as well. I think we can play, go ahead and play this move here. So with this type of opening, and this is the French Rubinstein, sometimes there isn't much to do right away. So we have to be patient, and we have to pick our spots. Okay, this b4 advance, of course it attacks my bishop, but it kind of it's kind of a strange move, I think. I think I can. So obviously I don't want to trade it with this knight. This bishop I think is good. I can play here to d6, putting pressure here, and then maybe trade off this bishop. My other idea eventually is now that this pawn is advanced, I can maybe get a knight here to c3 maybe trade off that bishop. So strategically, that's what I'm looking at here. But where to put the bishop? Is there a problem with putting it on d6? I don't think so. It's a nice spot because I can even play like bishop to f4, trying to trade this guy if I want to. e7 is a little more passive, I think, but it doesn't get in the way of this rook. So, but we're going to go to d6, leave my options open to play here. And now I've got this option too of playing knight to d5 to either f4, for example, or to c3. Okay, let's see here. I'm liking my position, but we have to be careful here. Okay, knight to d5 is nice, adding another attacker here and maybe instigating something. So let's see what we can do there. Okay, so he plays this, a3. Now, sometimes it might be a nice idea to play a5. That's definitely a consideration to break this up and continue this attack on these pieces. However, we have to be careful because then this b6 pawn can also become weak. Let's see, a5 was also nice because a5 could be a possibility because if he advances this pawn, this one of course would be hanging. If he allows me to exchange, then this pawn becomes very weak. And if he takes here, I can actually take with I can think about taking with the b pawn, and then this becomes weak. While a5 is kind of calling to me. The other option, of course, would be to play something like knight to c3 first to trade off this bishop, and then these pawns become quite weak. So between a5 and knight to c3, let me see, are there any other options? The bishop to f4 move is definitely interesting. But I think this position is calling for me to weaken these pawns. So should I play knight to c3 first? Maybe a follow-up attack? Or let's take a look at, so knight to c3 pretty much forces him to trade. Queen takes c3. Then I'm attacking this pawn. The only way to save it, I think, would be for him to play his rook to a1. And then now I can play a5. He takes, I can take with the rook. Then this pawn will most likely be lost. And this pawn would be weak, but I'd be a pawn up. If I play a5 now, and he advances, then what I might want to do is, well, then I would just take. But then if he takes, then I take with the rook, and then he's going to lose this pawn. So I don't see any negative. This pawn becomes a little weak, but I think I can end it. So he also has c4 here. That's another consideration why I might want to play knight to c3 first. I think that the same ideas are happening. I'm attacking these pawns here. So let's play knight to c3. So my idea is I play knight to c3 because he has c4 as an option. Okay, I take here. Okay, so here he's threatening this check. So if I go ahead and take this right away, of course that would be very bad because he would play his bishop to h7 check with a discovered attack on my queen. So I could either retreat or I could play rook. Would rook to c8, rook a to c8 solve the problem? rook a to c8, and then there's no more, then this guy's protected. So let's do that. Still can't take this pawn right away, though. So a5 is still kind of an option here. Okay. He's threatening to take here. Now I can't play a5 because b6 is weak. I can't take because of the discovered check. Now I could play something like g6. Oh no, but then h6 is hanging. So now the other option I have, which is kind of more of a long-term option, is I can play queen to e5, trading queens off, and then I'll have the two bishops and still have a lot of those, these weaknesses here to attack. That's another consideration. If I do nothing, he's going to play something like knight to b1 and attack me. I can even play something like queen to c6, but then he can block it fairly easily here. I think I like the queen trade idea. Because I feel like my structure is a little better and the two bishops give me a little advantage. Okay, let's go for that. So my idea is to trade queens and have an advantageous endgame. Okay, so he brings his rook here, and now I can pin this knight here and then attack these pawns. Okay, of course my bishop is being attacked, so I have to do something about it. Let's do that. Okay, so this knight cannot move at the moment, otherwise I will take his rook. Okay, he moves the rook. And now I can play a5. Okay, so I'm attacking these pawns here, trying to create weaknesses. And here, let me think what the best way to do this would be. If I take back with the pawn, you know what, I'm going to take here with the bishop, because now he's got two weak pawns. I have one weak pawn, but my weak pawn is covered pretty easily here. Okay, he's advancing this pawn here. I'm not quite sure why. So this is where the computer is a little weaker, because it's, strategically it's not as, I guess, not as skilled. Now I have to be careful here. So if I'm thinking here, rook to c3 to attack this pawn. I just have to be careful about discoveries if you were to move this knight. But then I could just move this rook over. Let's go. What are my other options? I could start to develop some type of attack here. Actually, can I just attack this pawn? My idea being that I can attack this pawn. He could play something like knight to f3, and then I could just take his knight. If I play rook to d4, and he advances, now these light squares become very weak for my bishop. Actually, I kind of like that move, because then what I can do here is swing my rook over this way. So let's just make sure here. If I play rook to d4, he can play this fork with the knight, but then I can just ignore it and take the pawn, because if he takes the knight, I just take back with the pawn. If I play this here, he can advance it, and then maybe I can just attack it with my rook anyway, or I can attack this pawn. So I kind of like it, this kind of a rook lift here. Okay, So now you see here, I've got this potential skewer, for example, but in general, there's just some weaknesses here. Um, Now, if I take this knight, let's see here. If I take this knight and he takes back with this rook, do I have anything? Then I could go ahead and attack this. Well, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to. This bishop is doing okay here. I think I'm playing g6 just to make sure my back rank is safe here, in case he has any shenanigans. He does have this fork here, potentially. Um, so if I take, so I've got a couple ideas here. Something just like g6 might be nice. I could even double rooks here, just kind of keep the pressure on there. Um, I can take this knight because this knight now becomes sort of his only main active piece, and then I can double up depending on what he does. So if he takes with the this e rook, I can double rooks myself, and now I've got kind of a pin here. Oh no, I don't, because he has that he has this move here. Then I could of course attack this pawn. If I attack this pawn, then he can move his rook over. Then I could attack his rook. I think I just win this pawn. Well, he could play knight to b1, which would kind of be, I think, not be a great move for him. So a few choices here. Let's see. Rook to a4. It just seems like not sure if that's the best. This rook kind of gets stuck in here. Rook to a4. I feel like this knight just kind of gets in the way. But if I take this knight, then am I giving up my good bishop? That's always a question here. Is there a better move I can make? I could just take my time and actually just play rook to. Well, I could just play my rook here to d8, double up, and then look at putting pressure there. g6 is a nice conservative move too, I think. You know what? I'm going to play safely because I think I do have a structural advantage with his two pawn weaknesses and with my two bishops. Okay, he does this fork, which we discussed, and now let's see here. Then I think I just swing this rook over. Okay, so if he captures here, I can capture with the rook. Okay, and well, so I have to consider this. If I capture with the rook, then this pawn becomes weak. So I think if I capture with the pawn, see, he attacks my rook, and I just move my bishop. I mean my bishop, and I just move my bishop over here. It's a nice little outpost. I've got pressure on his pawns anyway. So let me actually like that. Let's do that. Now notice I don't have any back rank weakness. Okay, he's defending there. And here I think I just win a pawn because I could bring this rook in and he cannot bring another defender in. He can attack this rook, but then I can take there anyway. And again, there's no back rank weakness. So I think I'm just winning a pawn here, guys. So slow and steady, sometimes the way to do it. Okay, he's going to attack here, and I'm just going to move my bishop here, and he's just going to lose this pawn. Okay, he's going to check me here. So I have to be careful now. Just going to keep it on the dark square here, off of here. And I think he's just resigning himself to losing this here. Which one should I take with, though? I'm thinking I should just take here with the... Well, if I double up, then I can attack this way. But I like that my rook here is free. So, you know what? Let's put this rook here. The other way is a little more of a philosophical as opposed to a tactical type reason, is that there's one less rook in the way of this this pawn to advance. Okay, let's see here. Well, I can force some trades by playing something like bishop to f3, which is threatening checkmate here, or force him to... I can force a trade right here with this bishop. I'm only a pawn up, so it's not super decisive. See, does this check do anything? It just drives his king to the center, which is what I do not want to happen. So even I'm up a pawn, but it's still not quite winning, because it's fairly easy to draw with a pawn down, a rook ending. But what I could do, so I don't want to necessarily force simplify yet. Bishop to f3 looks really nice though, because it constrains this king and maybe forces him to a worse position. So I'm going to do that, or force this trade in an unfavorable circumstance. You know, if he plays bishop to e2, then I hit him with this check. And okay, so he's forced to bring that one back. That's fine. And now I'm just going to go ahead and... Is advancing this pawn work? Maybe not yet. Here I'm going to take my time. I'm just going to play h5, just lock down this g-pawn here, and also give my bishop an anchor over here. Okay, he's bringing his guy over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work to trade rooks by doubling here and then playing my rook here. Okay. He's bringing his king to safety. I think I'm going to advance my pawn. So the way I'm going to win this is to force him to make some concessions by bringing my pawn closer to promoting. He has to stay defensive. You see how passive he is with this rook? And here, he almost can't stop me. I mean, he's going to eventually put his rook on a1. Okay. Just going to push it. Then I'm going to put this rook behind it. Should be good. And then I'm going to play my other rook to b1. Okay, so here he is giving up a pawn. Not quite sure the idea here. I think he can't really move this rook. Well, he can, but he just... I'll just take it. So this is where the computer, if I had made like a big tactical error, the computer would jump on it. Here, in this case, since I didn't, here I'm just trading. Not sure if this is the optimal move, but trading down with my pawn so advanced here is, I think, a good idea. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my king in afterwards. Okay. So now I can put even more pressure on him by doubling here on the 7th rank. So this is kind of my trump card. I don't need to rush. The key here is I don't need to rush taking or trying to advance this pawn. Okay, so now I can just bring my king in. Let's see here. Yeah. Well, actually, first I will. Well, do I want to attack that right away? Yeah, let me attack it. Okay. Take this with check. So he's kind of helpless. I mean, I know the computer is very bad in these positions, but there's not much he can do. Bring my king in. To bring he's covering. I'm protected here by his own pawn, so he can't really attack me with his rook. Okay, and I think here we just bring our rook back to this spot. So let me think about how I want to approach this. Would it be advantageous just to give up this pawn in order to get this pawn with more of an attack? That's a possibility. Or what I could do here actually is bring my king over and just prepare to force an advance of this pawn. You know what I'm going to do? Let's do this. Let's put a little pressure on this pawn and see what he does. Because now I've got a 3-pawn advantage, which he will not be able to draw. Okay, so decisions. I'm going to go ahead and put this rook behind this pawn so that this rook can move. Okay. So now I'm attacking here, and I'm just going to go ahead and win this pawn. He can trade rooks here, but doesn't really help him too much. So here we're just trying to look for a riskless win. Okay, when you are winning like this, as long as you have the time and try to make the win easier, you don't have to find the most efficient win. Okay, so here, I see. Okay, so he's going to win a pawn here because he's after I check him, he's going to do that. But again, this is a totally winning endgame, so I don't need to worry. And now it gets so. One of the principles when you're winning by a lot is that you can just go ahead and, like I said, you want to take your time, but if you can simplify so that you can make the method of actually winning easier. So I got rid of one of the rooks with the idea that now the method is easy. Okay, I'm just going to keep my rook to restrict his king, and I'm just going to start advancing my pawn. So here I'm going to move my king out of the way, and I'm going to put my rook here on g4 to protect this pawn because I'm going to advance these 2 pawns. Okay. So here, let's go ahead and hit him at that check. And now it's just a methodical advance. You know, normally here a human opponent might resign, but here we could actually try to use our technique. It's not that difficult. Okay, he moved over here. Now I really have to just be careful of stalemating threats. Okay, so I'm going to advance my pawns. So really, as long as I give him these squares to move, then we should be okay. So when you're playing a computer opponent, even though this is a kind of a watered down version, you want to be careful because it will punish you. So for example, here, if I do play, it's not a big deal, but if I were to play f5, then it would hit me with a bunch of checks without, I want to give myself somewhere to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and advance this here. Give myself a place to go here as opposed to having to retreat to h6 and work my way out. Okay, it's cutting me off. That's okay. And go ahead and advance this pawn. So this pawn is totally protected. I don't need to move this rook really. My king should be enough to advance these pawns. Okay, so I'm going to go here. So he can't check me over here. He might hit me with a check over here, in which case I'll go over here to e5. Okay. Just going to bring my king in. At this point, it's one of those situations where this is a total win, but I know I've watched beginning players in tournaments who have this type of position. They'll end up stalemating the opposing king. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, here he's trying to restrict here, but again, doesn't really do much. So my idea here is I want to advance this in a staggered fashion. So let's make a quick move here with the idea of trading off here. If he checks me, okay, so he's not going to do that. Okay, so let's just advance this pawn. Okay, I'm going to attack my king. So let's just move this way. So moving here behind the pawn, and I'm just going to drive this pawn home. If he hits me with a bunch of checks, I can just bring my king around. And remember, at any time, if I trade, he can't really. His rook is the only thing that's keeping me from advancing these pawns. Well, and his king, but so he does not want to trade rooks because then I just use my king to get a better position. Okay. So when you're winning like this, guys, make it easy on yourself, okay? Don't try to do anything too fancy. Don't take on any risk that you don't have to take, okay? Okay, here I'm going to just trade off rooks, give a pawn back, then just bring my king around and advance my pawns. I can even take his pawn, but it's not necessary. Okay, trading off rooks. And here, I could even just bring this pawn up. Well, again, I think I'll just make it easy on myself. Here's the thing, guys. I could get a better advantage with my king and just win that way. But like if you're a beginner, just remove any type of opposition. Just make sure you don't stalemate them. Sometimes I see that too, where you're totally winning and then you try to get 3 queens just for fun, and then you end up stalemating your opponent. I've seen that countless times in my chess club and with my young students, and you could avoid that. Okay. So this is not the most efficient way to win, but again, the theme here, I guess, is guaranteeing that that I can't lose. Okay, so here I'm going to let him take that. Obviously, I'm going to let him take that pawn. I'm just going to bring my king over here, so he's forced to take this or move back. Then I'm just going to advance my pawn. You only need 1 queen to win, guys, and I have a video on that, how to win with a queen and a king versus a king. You need that, so you can give up these other pawns. Okay, and then I'll show you how this works here. Okay. Okay, and then the idea here, in case you haven't seen that other video, is that we're going to checkmate him along one of these back ranks, I guess you could say. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring my queen over here, make a little box for him, and I'm just going to make that box smaller. With every move he makes, I'm just going to close in on him, but I want to make sure he has room so I don't stalemate him. Okay. It's going to keep limiting his options, but again, making sure he has at least one square to go to. Again, this isn't the most efficient way, but I learned this, or I kind of developed this. I had like I was playing a master, and he had like 5 seconds on the clock, and I had like 2 or 3 minutes, and but he had this. He had the queen, and I thought maybe I could run him out, but that was not to be. Okay, once you have him on the back rank, you just bring your king over. Pretty straightforward here. Okay, he only has one legal move, so I don't know why it's taking a long time. Okay, and then we're going to checkmate him on the next move. Okay, and checkmate. Okay, so beat up on the computer a little. I don't always win against this slow bow, but hopefully you enjoyed that game. Hopefully you learned a little something, and I was pleased with how we played here. I don't think we made any major mistakes, and I thought we had some nice strategy as well. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that game today. If you did, please press the like button. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing. Better Chess Training is about helping you to become the hero of your chess story. And do videos like these to help you increase your chess knowledge, and also videos to help you improve your thought process as well as your performance at the chessboard. So subscribe and check out future videos, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.